Right, this is part 2. We did the introduction into healthy relationships, and before we get into comparing relationships, whether they be healthy or toxic, and deliverance from being the one who is a toxic abuser, or the one being involved in a toxic relationship, let's look at what toxic relationships are. We discussed the different definitions of relationships in the last video, but we're going to look at several types of relationships, and as we said previously, they affect us physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Never is it just one category that we're affected in when we're involved in a toxic relationship or an unhealthy relationship. And let me go ahead and say from the beginning, I am not a licensed counselor. I am not a certified counselor. I do have a counseling degree from Liberty University, and I am a member of the American Association of Christian Counselors. And so, I try to keep ongoing training, stay updated on the latest theories and ideas, philosophies. However, everything I do, whether it be education or counseling, it's all from a biblical worldview. So I would be labeled as a pastoral or biblical counselor. So everything that I'm going to share with you, we're going to discuss some facts. We're just going to discuss some definitions and try to explain the different types of relationships and what's going on with people. But understand that as I wrap it all up toward the end, and as I drop pieces throughout the series, this video series, I'm coming from a biblical worldview. That's how I function in every aspect of my life. So I'm not trying to offend anyone, and I'm not trying to, we'll see that there are going to be some things that I disagree with a traditional counselor on, or even theologians sometimes. And so this isn't to stir the pot or say anyone has a bad diagnosis, or that all diagnoses, whether they be mental or emotional, in a dysfunctional way, to say any of those are not legit. That's not what I'm trying to do. However, I'm going to point out that there are some other options at looking at this, and in a lot of cases there is a combination of things going on, not just some kind of a personality or behavioral disorder, with people who deal with people who inflict pain on others, or hardship on others because of their unhealthy lifestyles or way of thinking. So, the first type we're going to look at is a passive-aggressive partner. Now, if you're dealing with any of these types that we're going to mention, they've got to get help immediately, and it's got to be ongoing help, or you got to get out of the relationship, because it will harm you, and more than just hurt your feelings or make life a little bit more difficult. They will harm you, and possibly themselves, most likely themselves. So it is important that you not be in a relationship with a person like this, whether it's a marriage, friendship, even family relationships. Sometimes you're going to have to get out of a work relationship, and that may cause you financial stress at first. But if you're dealing with these type of people, you got to go, or they got to get help. So let's understand what we're dealing with first. If you're in a relationship with someone who is passive-aggressive, that is a toxic relationship. They have an indirect resistance to the demand of others. Now, we all kind of have a little bit of a rebellious streak, or I'm one of those. My kids call me a control freak all the time, and I do like to be in control. I like structure, and I like things to be done my way. But I'm also very open to new ideas and looking at things in a different light. I want to understand the whole of what's going on. A passive-aggressive person is completely resistant to any kind of opposition. They are avoidance. They have an avoidance of direct confrontation. Cannot handle confrontation. They would rather be mistreated, or they will sit there and let someone close to them be mistreated and walked on before they'll deal with confrontation. They have issues with procrastination, and there are a lot of people that's just a little bit of their makeup. They procrastinate. That's a little bit of their nature. I'm one of those. If I want it done, I want it done yesterday. We don't do the whole procrastinating. And I've got, I got people that live in my household, my husband and my daughter that's there now. They're huge procrastinators. Unless it's something they want to do at the moment. And I think, all of us may be like that a little bit. But when I say that they are they're procrastinators and they avoid confrontation, it's to the point they will let the people close to them be hurt. And they will sit there and watch it because they can't handle confrontation. And because they don't want to they procrastinate because they don't want to deal with anything that's not giving them immediate gratification. They'll pout if they're forced to deal with issues that need to be dealt with. Instead of just, being a go-getter, go take care of it, get it out of the way, and let's move on with something else. They make others miserable with that whole passive attitude. It's complacent, but it's an I don't care type complacency. This kind of behavior puts unnecessary pressure on their loved ones because, those who do deal with confrontation, and confrontation is not always a bad thing. That's just, confrontation means it's just something that's come up you've got to deal with. There are jobs and all that a lot of us don't like, but you just have to deal with it. As a mom and a grandmother, I don't think anybody finds joy in changing stinky diapers. But if I did not do that because I don't like doing it, I'd have some kids with some messed up bottoms. I would have some neglected children, and that's wrong. So you do what you got to do. You just grab the bull by the horns and go on. And so the people who are left standing there, they have to pick up the slack for these passive aggressives as well. And also, it often can put family and friends in harm's way. If nothing else, it can put them in harm's way emotionally. So if they're not willing to get help, and it gets so bad that you can't find it, and a lot of times with a passive aggressive person, you can find an outlet if they just refuse to see what's wrong and that they need to make changes. You can find an outlet and kind of escape that. Do that. Find you a healthy outlet. This is the one of the disorders we're going to talk about that you can stay in the relationship, you can maintain a relationship, but you can't lose you. If you lose who God created you to be, then you're going to be miserable, and emotional and mental instabilities will harm your physical health too. Plus, it'll just rob you of the joy that God's got for you. So find an outlet so that you can remain healthy emotionally and mentally. And do your best to get help for your passive-aggressive friend, husband, wife, parent, whatever. But if they absolutely will not admit there's something wrong and seek help, all you can do at this point is pray. If it starts getting dangerous to the point it's posing problems with your health, or they're putting you in dangerous situations that can cause physical harm, in those situations you may have to get out if they refuse help. But definitely pray, because this is one of those that there is some hope. There's a glimmer of hope with them.